So lately, there's been a little bit more talk because Sony is having some kind of like meeting or whatever that's called like Beyond Boundaries or some crap, and people think that it has to do with Sony going to put their games on Xbox. And I've mentioned this numerous times before. If you're an Xbox fan, I'm an Xbox fan, but why on earth would Sony ever put their games on Xbox, right? And don't tell me, Major League Baseball. We know why Major League Baseball is on Xbox, and it has nothing to do with Sony. It has everything to do with Major League Baseball. So, Jez Gordon recently said also there's no chance of Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox. We know that even though PlayStation missed their amount of consoles sold in their recent quarterlies, we do know, however, that they would have missed by a lot more had it not been for Helldivers, which pushed so many millions, 12 million units or whatever. Half of those were on PC, but that means the other half were on console, and apparently was a bit of a console driver as well. So when you see that, I mean, I think people kind of look at things a little bit differently than they would have before. So, a lot of people do think that Helldivers will eventually come to Xbox. Listen, back in the day when Phil Spencer started, his whole thing with, we're not going to do exclusive content anymore. We're not going to buy DLC or weapons or anything like that. We're not going to keep things from other people and what have you. When he started doing that, which by the way was like almost a decade ago, everybody was saying, wow, Sony will follow suit. Everybody will follow suit. This will be great for gaming. Well, we fast forward and we noticed that nobody followed suit. And, when it comes down to it, why would they? You know what I mean? Sony's a hardware company. They're not going to put their games on Xbox. So, anyway, it's impossible to ignore the smash hit that Helldivers 2 has had, even with the players going down a little bit recently. The world has been sharing their crazy successful stories. It is a lot of fun. Obviously it had a little bit of an issue with the whole PSN thing, but they'll probably recover it for that. But why isn't Helldivers 2 on Xbox? That's what Phil Spencer wanted to know back then. But anyway, it's a smash success. It's on PS5 and PC. It's highly unlikely that it'll ever get released on Xbox. Sony funded and owns the IP, choosing to keep it exclusive to boost PlayStation and PC sales over Xbox. Console exclusives like Helldivers 2 for PlayStation entice players to purchase specific consoles, adding unique value to each gaming ecosystem, which is perfectly explains it. So it was developed by Arrowhead Games, published by Sony, so while the studio isn't technically first party, Sony did fund and they do own the game, as it's their choice on which platforms to release it on and when. Xbox is PlayStation's biggest competitor in the console space, so Sony would rather keep Helldivers 2 on platforms like PlayStation and PC. Sorry, but you should not expect Helldivers 2 to ever be released on Xbox console. There's always a 1 in a million shot that might surprise people, but so far only one PlayStation published series has ever come to Xbox, and that's The Show. And then of course Bungie's Marathon, if that ever does get released, will come to Xbox. But the entire thing with Bungie was they were going to not agree to be bought unless they were able to do multi-platform stuff. So that pretty much clears that up. And when it comes to Major League Baseball, The Show, there's a reason for that. So console exclusive is a game that appears only on that console and none of the competitors. Nintendo is the most precious with its exclusives, with like Mario, Zelda, Kirby. They only exist on Nintendo consoles and nowhere else. Aside from Nintendo, PlayStation and Xbox console exclusives are a little bit more fluid. Xbox has recently taken exclusive games and put them on PlayStation and Switch, while PlayStation has been putting some of its exclusives on PC. But if you want to play Mario, you have to buy Nintendo. If you want to play God of War, you have to buy a PlayStation. And if you want to play Halo, you have to buy an Xbox, at least for right now. Currently, both Xbox and PlayStation hang on to a few console exclusives that draw people to its platform. Notable exclusives, Halo, Gears, and Forza on Xbox, but again, those could go at any time. PlayStation has a larger list. The Last of Us, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Helldivers 2, and things like that. So, again, Major League Baseball sort of forced the line with Sony to put baseball on Xbox and PlayStation. That has nothing to do with, Sony themselves. Major League Baseball was like, we want our game everywhere. We're going to give the license to EA, who was going to bring back their baseball game. But then Sony was like, okay, well, we'll do that there. And, again, that baseball game was always a top seller, in in the NPD. So even when it's on Game Pass day one, it's still a top seller on NPD for Sony or whatever. And obviously that version is published by Major League Baseball themselves. So, seeing that Helldivers could potentially come to Xbox, 0% chance of that ever happening. Listen, I'm sure Microsoft would love it, but again, Xbox has really kind of hurt themselves in this way. Even if we were headed to some kind of utopia, even if there were some kind of utopia where games were on everything, why would people put games on Xbox, which has sold incredibly poorly, and Microsoft doesn't put an emphasis on to sell well to begin with? Like, it doesn't make very much sense, in my opinion, for them to do that, at the end of the day. So maybe, I don't ever see that changing. Like, if Xbox had sold 60 million units, then maybe you could see there be some kind of point in that. But realistically, I think PC and PlayStation have a very high user amount as compared to Xbox. So we'll see what happens in the future. Like I said, we'll never know until it happens. But I just can't see a world where Sony, as a hardware maker, ever decide to just go, okay, let's just put our stuff on Xbox, because again, I don't look at that as something that would work out well for them, because it makes it to where, and I hate to say it, but it really makes it to where there is no point in owning said console, right? And that's just the God's honest truth. Like, what is the point of owning an Xbox if you can play those games on a PlayStation? I know some people don't believe that or whatever, but that is the God's honest truth. Maybe you have a big buildup of digital games, and so that's why you would do it. Maybe, I'm sure that's what Microsoft is counting on, but not everyone's going to do that. Like, if you're a person that buys both sets of consoles every generation, you really would have to rethink that, I believe. Like, I have rethought it. If Microsoft puts anything else on PlayStation, like, I'm definitely not going to be a person that's going to be looking to get the next Xbox. I have a Series X that'll probably work years into the next generation anyway, and then I'll just play the Xbox games that I want on PlayStation. Like, that's all there is to it. And that's not a flex. I know they still get money from it or whatever, but they're not going to get the same amount of money. They're not going to get a Game Pass sub. They're not going to get any of that stuff. So let me know what you guys think with this. I mean, it's a one-way street. Do you feel like that's fair? Let me know. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.